Once upon a time, in a small cozy village, there lived a kind shoemaker. He loved his work dearly, stitching soles, tapping little nails, making shoes that fit just right. But one sad day, through no fault of his own, hard times had come, and come, and come, until all he had left was just enough leather for one, only one, last pair of shoes. The next morning, the shoemaker woke up and shuffled to his workbench, and there, right there where he had left his cut leather, stood a pair of finished shoes, the most beautiful shoes he had ever seen. Every stitch was perfect. Every seam was smooth. He turned them over and over in his hands, quite unable to believe his eyes. Not long after, a customer walked into the shop. He tried the shoes on, and oh, how perfectly they fit. He was so delighted that he paid more than the usual price. Now the shoemaker had enough money to buy leather for not one pair of shoes, but two. And the very next morning, those 2 pairs were already made. Then 4 pairs, then 8. Every night he cut the leather, and every morning the shoes were finished. One evening, not long before Christmas, the shoemaker finished cutting his leather as usual. Then he turned to his wife with a twinkle in his eye. "Let's stay up tonight," he said, "and find out who it is that lends us this helping hand." His wife smiled and agreed. She lit a candle, and together they hid behind a curtain of hanging coats in the corner of the room, and waited. The clock struck midnight, and then in they came. 2 tiny elves, no bigger than a child's hand, with pointy ears and bright little eyes. They had no clothes at all, but they didn't seem to mind one bit. They climbed right up onto the workbench, picked up the cut leather, and began to stitch and sew, and tap, tap, tap with their tiny hammers, faster than you could blink. The shoemaker and his wife watched, barely daring to breathe, their eyes wide with wonder. And just like that, the shoes were done. The elves set them neatly on the table, jumped down from the bench, and scurried away, gone as quickly as they had come. The shoemaker and his wife stepped out from their hiding spot. They looked at each other. Then they looked at the shoes. Then they looked at each other again and smiled the biggest, warmest smiles you've ever seen. The next morning, the wife said, "Those dear little elves have made us rich. We must do something kind for them in return. Did you see? They had nothing to wear at all. I shall make them tiny shirts, tiny coats, tiny trousers, and I'll knit them each a pair of stockings." She turned to her husband with bright eyes. "And you," she said with a smile, "can make them 2 tiny pairs of shoes." And the shoemaker was very glad indeed to do just that. That night, the couple laid all the little gifts on the table, instead of the cut leather. Then they hid once more to watch. At midnight, the 2 elves came bounding in as usual, but stopped short. No leather, just a little pile of the most adorable tiny clothes they had ever seen. They looked at each other, puzzled. Then they looked closer. Then, oh, their little faces lit up with the biggest smiles. They grabbed the tiny clothes and dressed themselves as fast as they could, hopping on one foot, pulling on their stockings, buttoning their coats. And when they were all dressed up, they began to sing. The elves danced and leaped and sang their merry little song, all the way out the door and into the moonlit night. And from that evening on, they never came back. But you know what? They didn't need to. For as long as the kind shoemaker lived, all went well for him. His shop was always full. His heart was always grateful. And somewhere out there, Two cheerful little elves were probably dancing still, dressed in the finest, tiniest clothes in all the world. And they all lived happily ever after.